It went straight down the middle. Then it started to hook just a wee bit. And that's when my caddy lost sight of it.
Hi, this is Kelly Elvin with Golf Life Navigators. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Voices of the Game. And as we count down to the Ryder Cup in 2018, it is an absolute pleasure to be joined by my friend Mark Rolfing from NBC Sports and Golf Channel. Mark, thanks so much for being with us.
Well, good morning, Kelly, and I must tell you, it is my pleasure to be on such an iconic thing as Voices of the Game, and can't wait to talk a little Ryder Cup, my favorite event in golf.
Well, and yours and the favorite event of many golf fans and sports fans worldwide, and we're going to get into a lot of that. We're going to talk a lot about your life and your career, and as we do this podcast on September 15, Mark, most immediately, you have just come off a rather important evening at your high school in DeKalb, Illinois, as the honorary captain for a big football game. Please give a little bit of background of what happened last night and what led up to it and the history of the game.
Well, yeah, DeKalb High School still in Friday Night Lights in particular when I was the captain of the football team a long, long time ago. I won't tell you how long, but those are some of my fondest memories of my life. And I'm in Chicago for about 4 days now before going back down to the Orlando studio for Tour Championship Week. But I had the honor last night of being the honorary captain for DeKalb High School against Sycamore, which is the dreaded rivalry. And they play at Northern Illinois University Stadium. It was a big night, 10,000 people or so. And I got to go out and speak at a pep rally in the afternoon. They let the kids out of school early, about 2:00. And then just do a whole lot of things in and around the game. And it really brought back so many memories. They came flooding back, and I managed to flip the coin without fouling that up, so that was good. I couldn't believe how big the high school kids are these days. There's a kid on DeKalb that looks like he may end up at Notre Dame playing football, and it was a totally different thing, but it was so much fun, and seeing lots of my old friends, and I've got some tremendous information yesterday, but I'm waiting almost 40 years to get, and that is that the rivalry had ended for a while because it got so intense, and there were all kinds of fights, and it was mostly the adults, not the kids, that were causing the problems. But
it often happens that way.
Yeah, it usually does. So one year, somebody from DeKalb, evidently, it's not totally confirmed, but I think it's true, put some dynamite in the Sycamore bonfire. And that caused quite a ruckus. And I think yesterday, Kelly, I actually found out who did that. So that was a successful day. I don't think I'll be able to reveal that publicly yet. But
right, of course.
The rivalry
you may need to get another source on that.
Yeah, may have to.
And did the good guys win? Did DeKalb win last night?
Good guys won, yeah. They won with 13 seconds to go, 17-14, scored a last-minute touchdown. They were a pretty big favorite, I think, over Sycamore. It's a much bigger school. DeKalb's actually got a new high school. I was shocked I hadn't seen it, but they have almost 2,000 kids in DeKalb High School now. So it was a great week, and just to be there with the mayor of DeKalb and the mayor of Sycamore, and it was like, I don't know, going back to Pleasantville, which is the way I remember it growing up there.
Well, how special that was. You're a native of Evanston. You're really a Chicago guy through and through in so many ways, and that had to be a very neat experience. Was it something where they had contacted you a while back and said, "Hey, we want you to come back and do this"?
Yeah, they had. There's a bunch of golfers in the athletic department there, and they knew that game happened to fall in the week off of the FedEx Cup playoffs, which was a great coincidence. So we decided to come up. I'm working on the Jackson Park project here in Chicago, and it's going to be a great weekend. I'm off to Wrigley Field after I talk to you, and got Soldier Field Monday night for Bears in Seattle. So yeah, I'm like Ferris Bueller. Literally, I am Ferris Bueller this weekend.
Right, you got the day off, and you're living the dream.
Absolutely.
Well, good for you, Mark Rolfing, and I know that you have so many friends and so many fans who are delighted to hear that. And your career has been a fascinating one in so many ways. And while we are going to talk about the Ryder Cup coming up in France, and we're going to talk about Ryder Cups in general. I just wanted to look back at your career that Mark seemed to, in many ways, reach its pinnacle last year when you were the recipient, you and your wife, Debbie, the recipient of the PGA of America's Distinguished Service Award for contributions to the game, which spans not only your work in from a marketing standpoint in your beloved Capitol Resort, but all that you've done for fostering children and for the work that you're now looking to do in Chicago that you hinted at earlier, a major project. Winning that award, being the recipient of that award must have been quite an honor.
It was one of the honors of my life, certainly, and I was particularly happy that Debbie Rolfing got some recognition. If you look at the names on that Distinguished Service Award, it's just an unbelievable roster, and there are not many women on there, if any. So to have her recognized, and really in the fostering initiative that we do, and we've had 29 foster kids over the years. As a matter of fact, had a 5-week-old this past month that Debbie primarily handled herself because I was on the road in Philadelphia. It is just something that's a very heartwarming and fulfilling initiative for Debbie and I, and to get recognized, with some of the peers on that list is just remarkable. So that's something that I'll never forget. And I really think when I went through the cancer battle a few years ago, Kelly, it changed my whole perspective on life, and a couple of things have occurred because of that. One is it's really important for me now to continue doing that type of thing as much as possible for the rest of my life. I also want to make sure I carry the cancer message forward and how important it is to be aware of the dangers of things like the sun and what people should do for sun safety. But, also to have my hometown city of Chicago have an opportunity like we're able to be involved in here, and basically something that's going to, I believe, become a model for the future of sustainable urban golf in the entire game, and to have Barack Obama and Tiger Woods involved in what really I think is going to change an entire community is very fulfilling. So that's the kind of stuff that's going to be really important to me going forward.
Oh, Mark, and so there's so many things to touch off from what you've just said. So let's start with the Chicago Parks Golf Alliance with President Obama, and I understand it likely will be his library with Tiger and the potential for building a golf course. Can you elaborate a little bit on what exactly can and or will happen there?
Yeah, what's going to happen there, Kelly, is there are 2 existing golf courses, very old, iconic golf courses. Jackson Park Golf Course, which is in the middle of the park where they held the World's Fair over 100 years ago, is a course that's over 100 years old, and it's pretty dilapidated. A lot of what you see in many municipal golf course situations around the country these days, the irrigation system literally is so shot that if you're watering the golf course, the people in the neighboring community there can't flush their toilets at the same time. So it's something that's long overdue. It needed some glue. It needed some vibrancy within the community, and the presidential center with Barack Obama definitely changed things. And when Tiger got involved, you can imagine the impact that had. And the city of Chicago has already announced that kids under the age of 17 are going to be able to play free, period, in Chicago, not after 2:00 on Tuesday afternoon or with your parents or anything like that, free, period, in perpetuity. So that is really, really important. And the best part about the project is we have formed this Chicago Parks Golf Alliance. It's a 501c3, and all the money that goes into the restoration is going to be donated money. So it's not like people are investing in a project where they have to get a return. And consequently, the $30 million that's going into this privately is going to be like building a park. The first time that I know of it's been done in golf. So it's a pure donation, and therefore the cost of the renovation does not have to get passed along to the consumer, and we can keep the affordable rates for the community going forward because of that.
Isn't that great? Tiger Woods' involvement then, is Tiger with the two existing golf courses? And I know you've known him for a long time, is he coming in and redoing the golf courses? What exactly will happen on that end?
He is. Tiger is all in on this project. I can tell you he has said things to me like he believes this is the most important golf project of our lifetime. He thinks it can change a community and be a model, and he really is into this.
Yep.
So what is going to happen is there's an 18-hole course, Jackson Park, a 9-hole course, South Shore. South Shore is going to have 5 holes that are literally lakefront on Lake Michigan, which is very unique in urban golf in America. A pier almost like Pebble Beach in the middle of the country. And so the 27 holes are going to get turned into 18 big holes that are at the same time going to be really still playable. There's going to be a lot of elasticity to it so that you can stretch it for championships and keep it smaller for the regular folks. And then there's going to be a short course, which is one of Tiger's signatures these days, that's going to have a number of different components to it. You're going to see a first tee component. There's just a lot of things that are going to go along with it that are kind of unique to the south side of Chicago. Nothing like that has ever happened. As you know, Kelly, Chicago literally is the greatest golf town in America.
It's a fabulous golf. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's a fabulous golf town, but everything is pretty much in the suburbs. And,
yes, it is. It's true.
Particularly on the north side, there's nothing downtown, and this is literally going to change that, I believe.
It's going to expose the game potentially to so many people, so many kids, Mark Rolfing, who otherwise would literally never have the opportunity, correct?
Correct. The Western Golf Association are big founding partners, and they've committed a number of scholarships to that specific community down in Jackson. But more importantly, right now, we have already started a caddy program at Jackson Park. Nothing like that ever has existed. And so this past season, if you went to Jackson Park to play golf, you were able to take a caddy and not pay for it. It was paid for by the Western Golf Association, totally subsidized, and it provides jobs for kids and expose them to the game of golf. And we have kids down in the Jackson Park community now that are learning how to caddy, understanding what the game of golf can do and how it can change their lives. And it's just miraculous to watch this thing unfold. And the renovation hasn't even begun yet. That's not going to begin until next year. So, it's really got off to a great start, and I think going to be an incredible initiative.
Yeah. So if renovations are beginning next year, what's the timeline for all of this to be completed, Mark?
It's going to be probably 2.5 years total. And our goal is to host the BMW Championship in Jackson Park on NBC by 2022. And
something tells me you were absolutely going to get that done.
Well, it doesn't hurt to have Tiger Woods involved in that conversation, as you can imagine.
Doesn't hurt at all.
I think the Western Golf Association and everybody in Chicago realizes that the fabric of golf and really the future of growing the game, there's no question in my mind, Kelly, is through public golf. And
yes.
Private club golf is always going to be an important component, but if we want to grow this game, things like what are going to happen on the south side of Chicago are really going to be the fabric of that. And I think Chicago can be a model for everybody to look at. We have even, I think, instigated talk now in Philadelphia. It's their last week for the BMW. There's a similar initiative that's going to go on at a place called Cobb's Creek, which is an iconic public course that needs renovation in Philly. So yeah, I think you'll start seeing little initiatives like this popping up around the country, and it's pretty inspiring for me to watch it.
Oh, I bet it is. Mark Rolfing from NBC Sports and Golf Channel joining us as we visit here on Voices of the Game in advance of the 2018 Ryder Cup. Mark, you mentioned your life, your perspective on life having changed through a diagnosis in summer of 2015, stage 4 cancer of the salivary gland. You beat that, obviously. We're so glad that you did. That had to have been a very, very difficult time for you, though, because it completely changed your life, didn't it?
It really did, but it changed it for the better. There's no question about it. I don't know that I would ever trade that experience for not having had it. It was difficult at the time. There was no question about it, but it gave me a whole new perspective on life. In some ways, it reminds me of what Tiger has gone through the last year.
Wow.
And I just was on the course with him for 2 days in Philadelphia and watched him shoot 66 on Saturday there and 65 on Monday after the rain delay. And certainly his golf is at a phenomenal level. But the biggest change that I've seen is really how much Tiger now appreciates everything that he has. I think the experiences he's gone through over the last 6 or 8 years has really changed him. And in a lot of ways, that's kind of what's happened to me. It has given me a totally new appreciation for life. And I think it's changed my broadcast career. As you've seen, I'm in the studio a lot more in Orlando now, and I'm doing analysis on the desk. And I think it's because I can be way more objective. I look at life now and say, wow, let's not waste time here. Let's not beat around the bush. Let's get to what we think and say it. And so it was really a game changer for me going through the cancer experience.
Well, that is fascinating. Now, your life began in Illinois. You and Debbie moved out to your beloved Kapalua Resort. You were director of golf there for a short time, head professional, and then got into the marketing side. But Mark, your actual dip into the broadcasting booth came via a most unusual way through a hole-in-one that you made in an event. Is that correct?
Well, it was, my playing career didn't last very long and was very unspectacular and less than successful. So I guess I wasn't that good is the bottom line. Or I certainly wasn't as good as I thought I was. Ended up in Hawaii on kind of a fluke. And it was in the mid-'80s that I had started the Kapalua tournament. And of course, given that I still could play reasonably well, why not give myself an exemption, which I did every year, since I was running the tournament. And
of course,
the first year that it was on NBC, which is 1985, we got the car company Isuzu that was a sponsor to put up a car at the 17th hole, and sure enough, who wins it but I do. And that actually brought me up to the 18th tower, and Lee Trevino was in there, and he kind of couldn't figure out how that had happened because he didn't think I was that good, and it was sort of a joke. And
right.
But it instigated a session in the tower, an impromptu session with me that was pretty unusual. Back then, you only interviewed a player. If a player came to the tower, you asked him how many birdies he made, what he hit, you name it, and the guy was out of there. So this turned into a different kind of thing. And the producer at the time, Don Ohlmeyer, the iconic Don Ohlmeyer, called me home that night and said, "Hey, why don't you come back tomorrow? That was great." And I said, "No matter what I shoot," he said, "no matter what you shoot." So sure enough, I shoot 76 the next day. Terrible. And then I go up there and kind of do a guest appearance. And you have to remember that back then, Kelly, there was no David Faraday. There was no Gary McCord. If you hadn't won a major championship, you were not going to be an analyst anywhere on golf television. And after Sunday at Kapalua in '85, Don called me and said, "How would you like to try being a commentator next week at the World Cup on ESPN?" He was producing that.
Wow.
And I just couldn't imagine why people would want to hear what Mark Rolfing had to say. And I knew it would take a little while. I also didn't know if the audition would go very well. It did. And that was November of '85. And after that was over, they signed me to a full-year contract for announcing golf on ESPN. And by '88, I was at NBC, and off we went. So that was, 31 years ago.
Well, but Mark, as you look back on it, what was it about the Mark Rolfing that they saw, that Don Ohlmeyer saw, that had him wanting to at least give you a tryout and be a part of the network? If you didn't think you were anything special, what do you think it was that attracted you to one of the top producers in all of sports?
That's still a really good question, Kelly. I remember talking to Don before the World Cup, before I went out there, and that first day there was quite a scene because it was like a fraternity hazing. The first thing they did was send me to first tee to interview Lanny Watkins. The U.S. team was Lanny Watkins and Tom Kite. And Lanny wouldn't anymore do an interview on the first tee, right before he teed off the inning. So, of course, he blew me off. I went through that. Then they sent me over to the 18th green to interview the Ozaki brothers, who had just finished their round. They were one shot out of last place, I think, and didn't speak any English. So everybody got a chuckle out of that in the mobile unit. So that was the initiation. But I remember Don telling me all week that week, I just want you to be yourself. I was nervous. I didn't understand. And he said, I think if you are you, people are going to start feeling comfortable with you. He said, I don't want you to be funny. Don't try to be funny. You're not a comedy kind of guy. Just be you. And it won't take long for people to accept who you are. And so in some ways, I think I became a little bit the common man's golf analyst pretty quickly because I didn't have the playing record. And it was pretty simple and I guess fairly reliable commentary, never really over the edge or, saying wild things or anything like that. And then I had the great fortune of having Johnny Miller come along, let's say. Yeah. So Johnny started in 91, and that really changed things because I could really be Mark. But now we had, Johnny Miller, for heaven's sake. And that changed the whole dynamic of the team. And then it was Roger Maltby's team. And so you had all these different styles and playing records and personalities. And I was able to kind of have my own little niche within the group. And it's gone on for 30 years.
Mark Rolfing joining us here on Voices of the Game for Golf Life Navigators. And Mark, even though you didn't have that stellar playing record, you knew the game. You knew how to communicate about what was going on out there. You must have had that confidence over time to know that what you were saying had value to the listener, the viewer on the back end.
I suppose I had it, somewhere deep down inside me, but I didn't believe it at the time. I remember being really, really nervous. And there were, frankly, some of my colleagues and peers that, didn't think it was, that they just couldn't understand it. Think about a guy like Bob Goldie. For heaven's sakes, and won the Masters, and he was the lead on-course commentator at NBC, and all of a sudden, Mark Rolfing becomes the lead commentator on NBC. I can imagine why he couldn't quite understand how that had happened, but I think you're right. I think communicating was, a quality that somehow I had. And as I look back on it now, there's probably 1,000 club professionals around America that could have done what I did at the time had they been given that opportunity. There's nobody who could ever get an opportunity like that, and mine kind of happened by fluke.
And you mentioned as well, you said about you and Debbie and going to Hawaii. How did that come about? Why how did it go from Chicago out to Hawaii and ultimately Kapalua?
I hadn't met her until the summer of 75, and I had played the whole European tour that year. I went to Q school in the fall of 74, didn't get my card, so I played the entire Asian tour in 75 and Europe. And when I got back from Europe, I heard about this girl that was in town that everybody thought it'd be a good idea if the two of us met. It was kind of an arranged blind date sort of thing. And we hit it off pretty good. And I had played in the Hawaiian Open that year on the way over to Asia. And that was the first time I'd ever been in Hawaii. And so I knew I had to figure out what I was going to do with my life, that I just simply wasn't as good as I thought I was. And playing for a living wasn't going to work. And so I asked this beautiful young lady if she wanted to go to Hawaii with me and, spend a few days out there in the sun having some fun. And we did, and basically never left. That's kind of what happened.
And you've been an incredible ambassador for Hawaiian golf ever since. Debbie has gone on to, as a real estate broker, an incredible career out there. Is she still selling real estate, still knocking it out there?
She does it, rarely because, having a 5-week-old newborn, in tow, for example, takes a lot of work, especially for people our age. we are the legal guardians of a 7-year-old now who is, really pretty much with us full time. And then of course she had to deal through the whole cancer thing with me. So she's kind of put her real estate career on hold a little bit. But we were in the right place at the right time. And if you think about it, just the fact that Arnold Palmer at the time was designing the second course at Kapalua, and he was coming out and probably spending 15, 20 days a year out there. And there was this young kid in the golf shop that was still a pretty good player that Arnold decided should be his partner in the afternoons when he went out and played golf. And, the next thing you know, I'm playing golf with Arnold Palmer like all the time out there. And he's introducing me to all these people and kind of mentoring me in the things that I should know and understand about the way to treat people and what the game of golf was all about. And, something like that was just a game changer for me, no question.
Oh, the lives that he touched, Mark, yours and so many others. What he meant.
Truth.
I recently talked to Doc Giffen, his longtime assistant, who I know you know well, and we're coming up, unfortunately, on 2 years with Arnold's passing, and talk about leaving behind an unbelievable legacy.
I was thinking Monday, Kelly, here we are in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It has been rained out on Sunday. It's Monday morning at 8:00, and people are flocking to the Golf Channel to watch the final round of the BMW Championship at 8:00 on a Monday morning. Now, when I started at ESPN and even into the NBC days in the late 80s, we were on Saturday and Sunday, 2 hours a day. Coverage started at the 12th hole and was on for 2 hours. And here we were showing 18-hole coverage on a Monday on Golf Channel, and it was because of one guy, Arnold Palmer. And the people just flocked to that telecast Monday. They did whatever they had to do. There was a chance Tiger Woods was going to win. It was just a phenomena that really made me realize, and it was Arnold's birthday in a couple of days, and the impact that he had in so many ways is just something you could never measure.
So, Mark Rolfing, as you talk about Arnold Palmer and Joe Gibbs, not the football coach Joe Gibbs, but the two gentlemen who started Golf Channel, and we have the Ryder Cup within days, and much like people getting up early in the morning to watch the BMW Championship on a Monday, I know I'm going to be up at 2 a.m. to watch Golf Channel on that Friday, the 28th, when that first ball is struck at Le Golf Nacional in what is easily the event in golf, and you will be there for NBC Sports. I believe it's your 14th Ryder Cup, Mark. It's truly an event unlike any other.
It really is. I think the Ryder Cup has become the most compelling event in golf. I guess I would say the Masters is the greatest golf tournament in the world, maybe. But I think in terms of being compelling, it's the Ryder Cup. I thought Hazeltine 2 years ago was the greatest sporting event of any kind I had ever seen. Wow. I was totally amazed at the quality of the performance of the athletes in an atmosphere like that. It just got better every day. Sunday, I was not with the Reed and McIlroy match, but I was with Mickelson and Garcia all day on Sunday, and Mickelson made 10 birdies that day and didn't win the match. And that to me is just remarkable. But that whole week, back to Arnold Palmer real quickly, it just seemed so perfect that Arnold passed on Sunday night before that Ryder Cup, and the attention in the golf world turned to Hazeltine, and I got the call and went out there Sunday night, and we were on the air pretty much nonstop for the next 24 hours with Arnold tributes to start that Ryder Cup week. And that really set the tone for what was an amazing week. And I expect it to continue in Paris the week after next. I just, to me, it maybe is even going to be better than Hazeltine. I don't know how it could be, but it's got all the ingredients. I'll tell you that.
I remember, Mark, when I worked for the PGA of America in their communications department and was at Glen Eagles in 2012, and it was the first time, or 2014 rather, it was the first time they had on the first tee the massive, not even bleachers, like a stadium type of effect. And now 4 years later in Paris, that first tee, it kind of almost looks like a stadium for the gladiators to go out there and begin the event in golf. Mark, how though could it be any bigger than Hazeltine? Is it and maybe help us understand, because I've never really seen the golf course there. The European Tour players certainly have, but it's a foreign golf course to many, if not all, American golfers who are not at the tour level. What is it about Le Golf National?
I think it's going to be the atmosphere and the number of people. I think you may see upwards of, somewhere between 60 and 80,000 people out there, which if you divide that up by 4 matches, the first 2 days you would have, 20,000 people per match. If you look, Kelly, at the Ryder Cup recently, the golf course almost doesn't matter. I don't believe anybody could tell you much about Hazeltine Golf Course based on having watched that Ryder Cup. The holes weren't even in the same numbers that they typically are. And it's the same thing with Glen Eagles. People would tell us that in Knockturrott, Scotland, that course that we played the Ryder Cup on was maybe the 3rd or 4th best course in town, and the town only has 1,500 people. So, but the course really doesn't matter itself. It is just the fact that you can get all those people, and you're going to be able to at Le Golf National. And that first hole there, people are never going to have seen anything like that. The pressure on the first tee at the Ryder Cup is like none in golf, period. And I'll never forget the one you're talking about in Scotland. I was out with the first match on Friday morning there when Webb Simpson, who could barely get the club back off that first tee, and he hit a pop-up that if it would have come down on the top of my head, I don't think would have hurt me.
I was there as well, Mark. It was an unbelievable scene, and wasn't Bubba originally supposed to hit the drive, and he sort of backed off and let Webb hit?
I think they both kind of choked a little bit as to what they were going to do. I don't know, but they ended up getting smoked in the match.
Oh yeah,
and I think the U.S. I think the U.S. will win this Ryder Cup, but I will tell you the pressure and the atmosphere that they're going to be faced with in Paris is going to be nothing like they've ever seen. And speaking of Bubba, for example, last time he was there, he effectively walked off the course and on his way out of France, pretty much dissed the country. So I don't think Bubba is going to get much of a warm welcome from those golf fans in France week after next. Webb Simpson may well be his partner. So Webb had better get his earmuffs and earplugs going, because it is going to be really, really tough. It's going to be a really distinct away game for the Americans.
So 2-part question then, Mark Rolfing. Why do you think the U.S. will win, and what do you see as being a critical hole or a couple of holes that will really be significant as a match play venue at Le Golf National?
Well, I think the U.S. is going to win because Europe has some gaps in terms of the strength of their team right now. Jim Furyk's captain's picks were no-brainers. He really didn't have much of an issue in front of him as to who he was going to fill out that team with, whereas Thomas Bjorn had a much more difficult situation. He had to take Sergio Garcia, who has not played well at all. He pretty much had to take Paul Casey when Casey committed over a year ago to play the European Tour to try to get back on the Ryder Cup team. But if you look at the core of that European team, the veterans, Stenson is not playing great. Rose is playing well. McIlroy is playing well. But I'm worried about some of the holes in that European side with the veterans. And if they are going to beat the U.S., they're going to have to get tremendous production out of the top of their lineup, because the bottom of their lineup is not going to be as strong, I don't believe, as the U.S. The key holes pretty much in the Ryder Cup, I think, come in 2 stages, and it's going to be the same thing at Le Golf National. To me, the most important hole is going to be number 1, because if the U.S. gets behind in matches or gets behind in the overall Ryder Cup match, on Friday morning, there will be an avalanche of support that starts a snowball that is going to be very hard to recover from. So the U.S., I think, has got to get off to a good start. To me, the biggest issue that Furyk is going to have in Paris, Kelly, is who is not going to play Friday morning. Because managing this team of all these superstar players is not going to be easy. You're going to have 4 guys that don't play on Friday morning. And if you just look at that team, you've got Reed and Spieth. Are they going to go out Friday morning? Yes. Okay, there's 2 guys out there. You look at Bubba, or you take a look at Brooks Koepka and Dustin Johnson. Will they be a team? I think they will. Will they go out there? Absolutely, they'll go out there. Of course. I think it's likely Justin Thomas and Ricky Fowler are going to be a team. So with Thomas being effectively the best player in the world for the last year, that team's going to go out. So now you've got 6 players that there's only 2 spots left for the last match. I guess if you look at Bubba and Webb, do you want them going out an alternate shot in the afternoon? Probably not. But put them on the side for a minute. Finau and Mickelson are going to be a team.
You think they will?
I think they will. And I think they are one of the most lethal best ball teams, 4-ball teams that the U.S. has. So then if you put Mickelson and Finau out, that means where's Tiger? You're going to sit Tiger on Friday morning in Paris? I don't know how you do it. So, yikes. I think just the management of the whole psyche of that American team is going to be quite a task, and it's going to be important to figure out really what they are going to do in those sessions on Friday.
Mark Rolfing joining us. Mark, just an aside on that point, I've often wondered why there aren't 5 matches played in each of the sessions. And because of what you just said, that because there are only 4, Friday afternoon, or Friday morning, Friday afternoon, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, it leaves 4 players out each session. Could the Ryder Cup be even better if you had a 5th match in each of those sessions? So you possibly wouldn't have a situation like Tiger Woods possibly sitting out at the start?
Maybe it would be better, but I'm not so sure, Kelly. I think that is one of the real compelling things about the Ryder Cup and what makes it different, for example, from the President's Cup. If you take a look at the dynamic at Medina in 2012 on Saturday, so bear with me on this one, but you've got Keegan Bradley, who is the hot U.S. player, firecracker guy, nervous, lots of energy. He was Mickelson's partner, and they were really, really good. And they won going away Saturday morning. But then Mickelson told Captain Love that he was tired and didn't want to play in the afternoon, that Keegan wasn't going to play either. On the other hand, the U.S. had a big lead at this point, remember. So then you had the other pairing of Woods and Stricker, who were not playing well. Stricker was 42 years old. He was tired, and he didn't want to play on Saturday afternoon. And if all you would have done at that point was say, okay, let's split these 2 teams up, put Bradley and Woods together out there, I think Medina would have been on fire. I don't think the crowd would have turned toward Europe like they did with that Poulter match. And I think the U.S. would have won the Ryder Cup simply by the pressure of the captain's decisions and what was done. I think strategically had a huge impact on that Ryder Cup. And that's one of the compelling things about it and about having this dilemma of who's going to play and not going to play.
Really leaves a lot to the captain. A lot of the pressure is on him from a strategic standpoint then.
It is. The players are way more invested in this thing now than they were, a decade ago, or certainly a couple of decades ago. Phil is very involved in this, as is Tiger. So, very quickly they're going to have pods of 4 players that are going to get grouped together. And, those players are going to have a big influence on what actually happens. It's not going to be a autocratic Jim Furyk makes the decision kind of thing. Look at what happened at Hazeltine. Phil was not playing well on Friday morning, and yet all of a sudden there he was going out an alternate shot because he said he wanted to. he had a lot of input in that decision. It ended up working.
Yeah.
But I think, this is going to be a group decision on all this stuff when it comes down to the U.S.
So as a group decision, do you see the potential coming true of any of the chirping we've been hearing a little bit about Tiger and Phil playing together at some point? Do you see that happening?
No, I don't. And I think it would be a mistake if it did, because I think they both have tremendous value. And just because of their dynamic, to have them out in two different matches going on would be way more valuable, I think, than having them play together, because you run the danger of having them get beat like they did at Oakland Hills. And that thing just cast a pall over the entire, 200 acres there that U.S. couldn't recover from. So I don't think they will take that chance.
Mark, what will be your responsibilities on course in the tower? What will be your responsibilities during the Ryder Cup in Paris?
Well, I start the week, Kelly, by doing live from the Ryder Cup. So it's Cara Robinson and I over there, and then the entire crew, Brandel and Ryan and everybody in Orlando. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm doing live from, which of course, is going to be mostly speculation and talking about the things that we're talking about right here. But come Friday morning, I will be on the course and, pretty much going nonstop. So I will do double matches on both Friday and Saturday, 2 sessions, and then singles on Sunday. So it's a long week. It's a busy week, but it flies by so fast. And it is really one of the privileges in my life and in my entire broadcast career to be able to go out there and be in the middle of the Ryder Cup. I could not stand it if I was up in a tower somewhere or, back in the Orlando studio, which would be great, but it would be nothing like being there. So, I relish my role there.
Mark, you mentioned about Hazeltine 2 years ago and how impressed and overwhelmed, how powerful that was. As you look back at all of the Ryder Cups that you've worked and been part of, is that the one for you personally that stands out the most for everything that happened during those 3 days?
It's more recent in my memory, but I don't think so. To me, it was the first one, which was for me, Kiowa Island in 1991. And on Saturday there at Kiowa, I believe there was a day where the Ryder Cup changed forever. And it was Saturday at Kiowa. It was the first day that the Ryder Cup had ever been on network TV. That was NBC's first broadcast, Saturday down there in 91. And I was on the course and with one of the matches, and at 6:00 Eastern, when NBC was scheduled to go off the air, my match was on the 12th green. And NBC had not really planned on what to do if it ran over. Everything was brand new. So to make a long story short, NBC stayed on the air for almost another 2 full hours of one match only, the one I was with, and they ran no commercials. So it was basically me on the course with the match, Johnny Miller in the booth, and the match was Fred Couples and Payne Stewart for the U.S. against Seve and Olazabal for Europe. And it ended up being a halved match, but that 2 hours, I believe, changed the Ryder Cup forever, and is probably still the most memorable 2-hour stretch of my 30-plus years in broadcasting.
Well, and those 4 and that drama on that windswept links, what an experience! I mean, that obviously it all came down to the Bernhard Langer missing the putt on 18 and the U.S. winning the cup, but it was much like '79 being the first year that all of Europe came into the Ryder Cup and reset it, if you will. Yeah, those few days, certainly for an American audience, that 91 mark, because the passion for the Ryder Cup in Europe and certainly in the UK has always been there. But for an American audience, it was a true game changer.
It was. I remember one hole, Kelly, on Saturday night about 6:30. They were playing the 15th hole, And U.S. had the honor, and the match was square at that point. Payne Stewart hit a big snap hook, never found his ball. And Fred Couples hit a big snap hook, and they found it in the bush, way left of the fairway. And Olazabal and Seve both drove the ball in the middle of the fairway. So Payne immediately went over to the 16th tee, which is a couple hundred yards away, and was basically signaling to Freddie, pick it up, let's go give him the hole. It's over. And Freddie wouldn't do it. He fiddled around in this bush, and he hacked one shot that went couldn't have gone 15 feet, got it out into this sandy area. And then he hacked another one that ended up in a cross bunker way short of the green. So he'd now played 3. Payne Stewart was in his pocket. Seve and Ollie both then played their second shots and had birdie putts inside of 20 feet. And Payne's yelling at Freddie to pick up, let's go. And Freddie walked into that cross bunker and took a swipe at it without really even, considering the shot, and he holed it. He made it for a par. Seve and Ollie both miss, and the hole is halved. The U.S. didn't have a chance to even remotely come out of that hole unscathed, and they halved it. And I remember Payne jumping up and down over on the other tee, and it was just classic. The hole took half an hour to play, but the U.S. crowd at that point then was just going nuts. It was like the miracle of that Ryder Cup, and that, I think, was a big sequence in really ultimately the U.S. winning.
Well, Mark Rolfing, it has been an absolute pleasure in visiting with you and talking about Ryder Cups gone by, and certainly a massive one coming up in Paris. You've got the U.S. winning. You're going to be in the middle of it. As many as, what did you say, Mark, 60, 70,000 people a day, perhaps?
Yeah, I think there easily will be. People are going to be shocked here in the U.S. when they turn on the Ryder Cup and see what that first tee looks like. The first tee is going to look like the 18th green in a major championship. It really is, even bigger maybe. Yes, it's going to be just an electric atmosphere, and the pressure, I think, is going to be suffocating.
Mark Rolfing again from NBC Sports and Golf Channel. Can't thank you enough for spending time with us to talk about your career, all the things that you've done to help foster kids, and what's going to happen in Chicago over the next few years. And we really look forward to hearing you in the middle of it all in Paris, starting on Friday, the 28th. Mark Rolfing, again, thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you, Kelly. It's been my pleasure, and keep up the good work.
Will do. This is Kelly Open with Golf Life Navigators. Been joined by Mark Rolfing from NBC Sports and Golf Channel. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you at the club.